Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
I lost audio on you here. No, I heard you fine when we were both in the green room. That faintly came through for a second.
Okay, I've rebooted the Bluetooth.
There
How
we
about
go.
now?
There we go, yeah. Oh, no, we lost you again.
Okay. Usually when I take myself out of the stream and come back in, it's okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I have no idea why that is, but if there's no volume, if I drop and come in, or if anybody else is like that, I can drop and come in them. Sometimes we've had like 9 people in the stream before, and one of them I can't hear, and everybody else can. And I just take them out and bring them back. It's a StreamYard bug, I think, that they need to clear out. So, since nobody knew who I was when I introduced the video, I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com. That's the thing behind me there. And we are talking tonight with Carson Grubow. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. You just kind of gag it out.
Him because, yeah, okay. Well, we're talking with Carson because we don't know Jack. And we're going to find out a little bit about who Jack is and why we want to know Jack. And as we go along here, everybody should be aware that this is a Kickstarter project, and then there's a link to this in the description below, very first link. So if at any time during this broadcast you decide that this is something that you're interested in seeing more of, we encourage you to click that link, go to the Kickstarter page, check out some of that artwork there, and back this project. It's only got a couple of days left to go. So Carson, why don't you tell us a little bit about what this project is and why it exists?
Okay, I'll try and do those in order, even though that's maybe out of order. The project itself is a collaboration between myself on art, legendary comic creator, Cerebus creator Dave Sim, and then our model, who's the character Jack Van Dyke. And basically, Dave and Jack are on totally opposite ends of the political and religious belief systems. You know, if you in today's world of Twitter battles and stuff, they should be at each other's throats, but they're both, like, you know, tolerant and willing to collaborate. And so it's kind of a humorous conversation between those two different poles of the political spectrum. Dave being like a ultra conservative, he calls himself a Abrahamic monotheist. You know, he worships the God of the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims, all as one Abrahamic religion. And then Jack's like a practicing pagan witch, you know, intersectional feminist, and Dave's like, you know, notoriously anti-feminist. And then I'm more like a rational skeptic in the middle of it all, kind of finding it all hilarious. And so you just put all three of us in the middle, kind of poking fun at each other's views and poking fun at how we poke fun at each other's views, and that's what the book is. How it came to be,
it's amazing how people can get along if they try.
Yeah, it's really easy. It's like, well, I don't agree with you about anything, but you're still like a nice human being, and we can make a good piece of art out of it. So yeah, everyone can get along.
Absolutely. So how did you and Dave Sim and Jack get together on this?
Yeah, so that's the
I
second
mean, did
part
you
of
meet
the
at a coffee
question.
shop somewhere or at a convention?
No, it's a convoluted story, but my profession is I'm a professor. I'm an art professor. I'm not a professional comic artist. That's not like what I'm trying to do for a living. So I was teaching at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia for a year. I was on a 1-year visiting professorship there. And at the end of the year there, I was teaching a summer painting class, and Jack was a student in my class. Around the same time, I had seen that Dave could no longer work on his book, The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, because something was wrong with his hand and he couldn't draw to the level of exactness that he wanted to anymore. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, I really appreciated the work you did on his book Glamour Puss. It taught me a lot looking at it, and my style is pretty similar to his, and I felt like I could mimic what he was doing pretty well. And I reached out and sent him some samples of my art and said, I can pick up where you left off and finish your book for you. And he liked the samples, and so he said, okay, the next thing I want you to do is go do a 4-page sequence of a manager closing down a comic book shop. Just go to your local comic book shop. And I was like, okay. And it was funny because Jack, this
Carson,
is
we
a
lost your audio.
Uh-oh.
Chat, can you hear Carson? Because I'm going to drop him out here and bring him back in.
All right, we'll try it now.
Your audio dropped there in the middle of your sentence, so I've added you back.
Okay, is it working? Okay,
yes,
good.
He wanted a 4-page, a 4-panel something.
Yeah, and previous to that, when Jack had first come in my class, I had talked about the reason I'm an artist is I loved comics as a kid. So she had told me the first day of class, like, hey, I manage the local comic shop. You should come check it out. And I was like, yeah, I'm leaving in like 6 weeks as soon as this class is over. I don't want to spend a bunch of money, whatever. 3 weeks later, Dave is like, hey, go to your local comic shop and get some photographs of employees closing it down and do a 4-page sequence for me to finish this trial run we were doing. And so I was like, well, perfect. I've got this student who's like a manager of a comic shop. So I went to Jack and I was like, hey, Jack, can I come photograph you closing up the shop? And she knew about Dave's work on Glamour Puss and was like, oh, yeah, I love that stuff. That'd be great. And so we did that. She was the model for The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, which Dave has quit working on, but I'm still working on finishing up, finding a publisher for it, hopefully. And then Dave just liked Jack as a character. It's kind of funny because she is the opposite of him. It's funny she wound up being a model for us, and we were just batting around the idea that it would be funny to, do this book with Jack and Dave arguing. And so it came out of her being the model for The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, and then we joked around that this was then going to come out as a promo for Strange Death of Alex Raymond. So it was like the prequel to a book that had never came out that no one asked for. And we thought that was a funny promotional idea.
Well, I did love the pages that are on the Kickstarter. I can't share them because of technological challenges, and you can't share them because you're on your phone.
Yeah.
So I've got the one page here that I'm going to put up here over on top of us. We're going to disappear here for a minute because I'm going to.
Okay, good. You can share.
I can share this.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
Now I'm going to tell everybody up front. I've mucked about with this one, obviously, for the purposes of this was our thumbnail, our advertising thumbnail. So the word balloons have text in it that basically says, I'm going to be on the show, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, yeah. And you put in some other comics in the back. That's good. You put your own books in there. Good.
Exactly. The Devil You Know, which just came out from Critical Blast Publishing, and our young adult superhero novel, Bulletproof Origins. Neither of these are graphic novels, by the way. They are actual books. I hate saying it that way, but it's the only way I can differentiate between comic books and not comic books.
Yeah.
But definitely a photorealistic style you've got going on here. I'm sure you're working off references, but is this more of a tracing kind of thing, or is this a picture to the side and pen on paper on the other side? I don't know how this process works.
It's both a little bit. It's what it is like a real quick trace in Photoshop, just of like pretty much the outlines, just for placement. And then I just go straight to ink right on top of it. So none of the details or anything are finished. It's just for speed. Like I could sit there and take the time to do this all by hand. And if people go to my Instagram, you can see a lot of videos of me drawing straight to ink, like with no pencil sketch, in this same style. It's just sometimes proportions get a little weird when you do that. So I trace it to speed up the proportional part, and then the rest of it's pretty much like those Instagram videos where I just get a brush and I start going. So I do the tracing in Photoshop. I print it out in a blue line, and when we scan the blue line, that drops out real easy.
Okay. Well, she's a very photogenic model, so you picked a good person to be the lead for your story here. But I say story kind of loosely, because this isn't really a story from what I've been able to gather from the pages. It's sort of like a sequence of vignettes.
Yes. Yeah, they're like 1 to 4, maybe 5 pages, like little one-offs. So when we set out to write the book, what I did is, like, keeping in contact with Jack at the time because I left as soon as I got those photographs of her, I had to move back to California from Virginia. And then I flew back out in November to finish up the photographs for The Strange Death of Alex Raymond. So we were just keeping in touch on Facebook, and she's real funny and witty. And so I'd see her posting these things from like the feminist perspective on Facebook that I thought were like these golden little bits. And I would save those and I'd send them to Dave because I know they'd get him all riled up. And then he would take that and make a little 2-3 page like gag strip out of it, basically. And then we would basically send it to Jack and see what she thought. She usually just said, yeah, it's fine. I gave it to other women in my life to be like, okay, if you had Dave tell you this, what would your response be? So we try to make it like a balance thing, but that's what it is most of them are real. Like if it's a quote from Facebook, it's something Jack actually wrote. And if it's in quotations, it's something she actually wrote. And then Dave constructed like gags around it.
Yeah, it's nobody comes off looking like the butt end of any of the jokes here. It's very witty, but it's also, well, nobody comes out at the butt end. She definitely seems to come out ahead on everything because she's the sympathetic protagonist. And I don't know why I'm saying this, but when I looked at some of the pictures, especially the one in the thumbnail, I got a very Frank Cho Liberty Meadows vibe off of it. I know that was a funny animal strip, but the stuff that he would do with Brandy sometimes in the fourth wall breaking artwork, which everything you're drawing in there is pretty much fourth wall breaking artwork because your hand is there the whole time, like MC Escher.
Yeah, that's how. So Dave is like it's weird. I think because he's just trying to remove himself so far. So he's decided he's a Starfield now. He's just in outer space. And then Jack is Jack. And then anytime I'm talking, yeah, it's just my drawing hand. That's how I enter the book. And I'm usually playing that role of like the person who's just like, oh my God, would you too? Or they are kind of both making fun of me and like taking advantage of me, and I kind of come off looking stupider than I am, I think. But yeah, that's the dynamic in the book. I could see the Liberty Meadows thing with the brushwork. I think I could see that stuff was really influential to me a long time ago.
Yeah, Liberty Meadows was ancient. Now it doesn't. Makes me feel old realizing that because I've got his University Squared book over here when it was new, and that's very ancient stuff.
Yeah, the hair, like the way he treats the hair might be what it is, the brushy hair
Yeah,
and the dark hair.
I could definitely see that. So this project here, the You Don't Know Jack, the two-fisted comic store manager, uh, how much of that is actually set in a comic store? Because there's a lot of big idea discussion going on that's not necessarily comics in the sample pages that I've seen.
Yeah, it's always like, usually it's pictures of Jack in the store, but the stories don't have much to do with it. Usually there's a few that are, one of them is a story that Jack told about like a customer. She was talking to a male customer and his girlfriend seemed to have gotten pretty pissed off about their interaction. So that one is a story. There's another one that's definitely, I drew her comic shop, Local Heroes. There's a big shot of that, and that's a great shop. Like Local Heroes in Norfolk, Virginia is one of those shops where you go into and you're like, I've never seen this. I've never seen this book. I've never, like, you just want to, that's why I was like, I knew I couldn't go in there because I'd want to buy stuff and I was moving. And then I had to go in there like a bunch of times to take all these photos. So there's a good shot of there. She's usually in the shop talking, but not about she talks about being a comic store manager in 2 or 3, 4 of the strips. There's a couple that are set like in Jack's bedroom, which is, I just went to the girl I was dating at the time and took photos of her bedroom and used it because they were into the same type of stuff, I guess. So it moves around, but Jack is definitely, she was a comic book store manager at the time we wrote all this and everything, and that's a part of the book.
Now, how close is the actual physical book to completion?
Oh, it's been done since 2017.
Oh, okay.
Like it's been print ready since 2018. It's just Dave was gonna use it as promotion for The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, so it never came out because it was going to be part of this big rollout of products that he was planning. And then when he quit working on that book and gave me the rights to publish all the stuff we'd worked on, it was like, okay, well, this book was written in late 2016, early 2017, right when Trump was getting elected. And a lot of the strips have that dynamic. Luckily for the book, that
it hasn't quieted down.
Unfortunately for society, but luckily for the book, all of those topics have heated up even more. They're more divisive now. But that's one of the things is like, I got to get this book out before the election comes because it becomes irrelevant potentially after that. So this book is done. As soon as the Kickstarter goes, closes and we get the money, we're going right to press with it.
Okay,
it's
that's
been
only 5 or 6 days.
Yeah, I think what we're going to do too is, I guess a lot of people won't buy off Kickstarter, so I think we're going to roll it over to Indiegogo for a week. I think there's a mechanism to do that pretty easily.
I know that people have run it on both, and they've done the Kickstarter first and then gone to Indiegogo, and since it's not a goal, you just put it pretty much in demand right away, so people know that they're not funding something, they're actually treating it as a shop, as a store. And you can set up still the different tiers if you wanted to, where you can say, hey, if you buy in at this tier, you get the book. You buy in at this tier, you get the trading card in the book. You buy in at this tier, you get a golden calf signed by God in the book and the trading card. All that kind of different stuff.
Yeah, that's the plan. And I think you can do it a week for free. I know Sean, who's our tech guy, and he prepares all the book for press. And like Sean, like this book has to be physical too. You can see it on the screen and stuff and think the art looks good, but Sean is so good at preparing black and white line work for press. Like just the quality of the recreation of the art is absurdly good. And he kind of handles all the tech side. So he's going to figure out the Indiegogo. But one of the things working with Dave is he was all freaking out about how small these old artists like Alex Raymond could get their lines. And so when I started working on the book, it was a challenge for myself to see how small I could get my line work, and see if I could make Sean's job of getting it to recreate difficult. And I got there to where I was making lines that at comic size are only 1 pixel wide. And so Sean is so good at getting, like, he can get his printer to print my ridiculously small brush lines and stuff. So
That's a
yeah,
challenge.
that will be something people aren't used to seeing, I don't think.
What's the physicality of the book? I mean, as far as the page size and the page depth, how many pages is it? Is it hardcover,
It's
softcover?
it's like it'll be a regular floppy 48-page book.
Okay.
And it was originally supposed to be 2 issues, and we've just combined the 2 issues into one 48-page book. And it will be printed on a nice matte paper. And the way the ink rides on top of the paper at the press that Sean works with, it's kind of like almost raised up. It looks like an old school, like, not a an old school like lithograph or relief printing. They're beautiful the way he does it.
Yeah, like a linotype. I have an artist friend who gets linoleum tiles and carves into it and then presses them in ink and then presses them off.
Yeah, so it has that little bit of raise to it, and like, but he's still able to get that with like these 1 pixel wide lines and stuff. So I mean, the quality is going to be amazing.
So since it is ready, you're just waiting for the Kickstarter money to kick it off. What do you see as the turnaround time on this? Is it a month out, or
As soon as possible? Like we've said, it October is like, yeah, that's what we want to do. Like I said, it has to be in people's hands before the election, in my opinion.
That's true.
Like for the material to be relevant still. So I got an email from him, CC, today, where he's talking to Marquee Press, who's our printer that can do that really nice printing, and telling them, okay, we're going to be ready to print like 300 to 400 copies in like 2 weeks. So people will not be waiting around for this book. It's done. It's ready to print.
Good deal. Working completely off memory now, and your memory is better of it than mine because you've seen this Kickstarter page several times, and I've seen it yesterday and today. What are the different levels that people can get in on this book, and what's the main level where it's like, here's your book?
Okay, so Kickstarter makes it confusing. I think they're adding now something where you can just do add-ons and treat it more like a store. I want this, and this. But it's been kind of a pain in the ass how to break it up into tiers. So it's $15 if you just want the book, and that includes shipping.
That's a good price for a 48-page book.
Yeah, for a 48-page, and I'm signing all the copies. Dave and Jack aren't going to sign them because that's too much shipping it all around. But I'll be signing all of the books. So for $15 shipping, unless you're out of the United States, then there's different shipping. But in the U.S., $15 that covers the shipping, and you get the 48-page hand signed. It's an offset lithograph. This isn't like a digital print on demand book. This is going to be a super high quality print book for $15. Then there's a $20 tier where you can get the book and then 2 digital downloads. So one of the digital downloads is David asked me at some point to write artist commentary on the process of working on the book. So there's a 9-page document there that I had made that was supposed to see print at some point but won't. And there also get a parody catalog. Part of Dave's rollout plan was to run an auction of all the original artwork. And to do that, we made a parody of Heritage Auctions, which is a comic and collectibles auction site. We made a parody of one of their books called Hermitage Awesomes. And that's actually a really funny product as well, because they've had this crazy idea that we're going to auction art before the book come out. And I said, you're crazy, man. Like, no one's going to buy art for a book they haven't seen yet. And he's like, well, the art's good enough that we'll just make the fact that it's a dumb idea part of the catalog. So that's actually a really funny product too, that we put a lot of thought into. And you can get a digital download of that. Then there's tiers where you can get a physical edition of that will be signed. You can get an edition of that that's one of 40 that's signed and numbered by me and Dave. He sent me labels and he hand lettered the numbering and signed it, and then I'll sign it. So you can get like a signed and numbered Hermitage Awesomes catalog. And And those ones will be worth having physically too. And those will be, I think, that a 76-page 8x10. It looks exactly like a Heritage Auctions catalog. So a 76-page 8.5 by 8.5 by. Sorry, go ahead.
It's a parody, but it's still a functional catalog. I mean, you are auctioning off the original art.
No, not anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, the original art's actually for sale on the Kickstarter as well. So there's a link. That's another thing. Kickstarter made it really hard to put that. So there's a link on the website to my website, and you can look at the original art and then email me. That's all on the site, and I'm putting together. You'll see there's a bunch of custom tiers already. So people are emailing me what original art they want and what else they want, and I'll make them a custom tier, and then I have them go get it right away so no one else grabs it. So we've sold a lot of the original art that way already, which is great. We went ahead and decided to also put together a 76-page, another 8x10 76-page book of my private short comics work that I just made for myself and posted on my website, like without ever intending to sell it. You know, I always just made it just because I felt like it. So there's another 76-page full color worth of comics in that book that people can buy. One of is like a 24-page parody I made of Grant Morrison's Batman RIP that's called Grantman WTF. So that one's really fun because every page I did in the style of a different artist. So I got like Jim Lee, Mike Mignola, Brian Hitch, J.H. Williams III, John Romita Jr., Chris Ware, like Kelly Jones, Chris Burnham.
Kirby?
No Kirby, because he didn't. I was mostly trying to go for people who have worked on Batman stuff. I couldn't help myself with the Chris Ware because I just love Chris Ware, and it fit what I was going for. But mostly people who have worked on Batman-related stuff. Dave McKean, Bill Sienkiewicz. Like, I did my best to mimic all of these artists I like. And that, so that's in that. And that book's called 6 Macro Cons, and it's got a whole bunch of different stuff in it, and mostly full color.
Okay, now you had said at the beginning that you had not done comic book work before because you're a professor, you're teaching the art. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up wanting to do comic books, and then like when I was around 21, I decided that I was interested in more artistic comics that I knew weren't going to sell very well. I didn't want to do superhero stuff for a living. Like, since I was 7, it was my goal to be a professional comic artist. So that's what I wanted to be growing up. But then in my early 20s, I decided that, I don't know, I was interested in weird stuff.
And you decided that academics paid better than comic books, which
was a terrible idea.
Yeah, and I'm going to put the artwork back up here again for people to see here because I want them to see the detail of line work that they've missed out on by you having become disenfranchised with wanting to become a comic book artist here. Because I would very much like to see you doing something in just about any genre out there. And now that, crowdfunding is this thing, not just for, Kickstarter, the book you're doing here, but obviously you're probably quite aware of all the different comic books that are being funded out there on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. You would do very well for yourself to put an idea out there and then create an IP and just run with it. I think you'd run away with it.
Maybe. I mean, the next thing up will be finishing The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, which is in this same style. When people look at the 6 Macro Cons work, you'll see that I'm kind of a chameleon. I'll switch styles a lot. So this style is developed around, what Dave was doing on Strange Death of Alex Raymond. If I did my own book, it would probably look something like this, depending on the story. I do have an idea for a book, and I was working on my own graphic novel, but when I moved to Alabama, that has become hard because the guy I was using as my main model is back in California, and I can't expect him to not lose weight and get healthy and not cut his hair and be trying to, like look the same as he does for the set of photos I already got. Yeah, I don't know if I would be able to develop like a IP, like a character, like a comic character that I did repeated stuff. That's just not how I think. I'm a little too serious, maybe. Like it was going to be a book about a guy who, this graphic novel that maybe I'll still do. It's going to be a book about a guy who played the lottery every day for like 15 years with the same numbers, and then for some reason he's not able to get tickets one day, and that's the day that his numbers get drawn.
Oh God.
And like I wanted to explore the just psychological fallout of like, God, how would it, okay, like the one rule is you don't get to commit suicide or else the story's over. So how would someone deal with that? So that's more of the kind of stuff I would be doing on my own, and it would work well with this style. But I don't know that it's like a character that I would be able to do things over and over. I think more in terms of like a graphic novel.
Yeah, and the other thing, again, for no reason at all, other than the hyper realism of the pictures, is DC used to do this thing called well, they were playing off their Elseworlds, which was this offshoot that they had where things were imaginary, like the other stories aren't, but they had the real worlds, and it was all stories that were supposed to be set in our world. It was supposed to be very realistic, and it just happened to be about Superman or happened to be about the Justice League and that kind of thing. I would love to see somebody actually try to be more realistic or hyper realistic with a superhero genre. And I can't think of anything that pops to mind right away because everything tries to go to heroic proportions with everything.
I mean, you got like Alex Ross, who did like Kingdom Come, and
Yeah.
that's the closest I think you've got. I can't think of anyone who did it in black and white. Because that's part of what The Strange Death of Alex Raymond is about, is photorealism in comics kind of died with those old strips. Rip Kirby, Heart of Juliet Jones, Neil Adams doing the what did he do? The one about the dentist, Ben Casey.
Yeah.
So that kind of all fell out of fashion, and Dave was trying to bring it back a little bit. I think that was his main goal, is trying to ignite a new generation of guys like me who see his work or now see my work and go, God, I want to draw like that, Yeah, and then when you get like the more serious stuff, like anyone from Fantagraphics, they go cartooning, right? You don't get someone that would do a serious autobiographical type thing, except Carl Stevens. I'll shout him out because I kind of swiped in. Dave was going to have a guy named Carl Stevens who does really amazing photorealist autobiography work, and he was originally going to take over when Dave's hand fell, and I saw his work, and it's like, man, this is really amazing stuff. It's just not the same style. And I think I could do that particular style better, but I couldn't do what Carl does either. It's like way more cross-hatching and shading all over the place. And right. So that's what initially got me to contact Dave, is I said, I think I can mimic that style better until this other guy learns how to do it. Because, I wasn't trying to have a career in comics, and then it turned into a much bigger project. But yeah, it's hard. It's a lot of... Sorry, go ahead.
Well, Tell us about the Strange Death of Alex Raymond, because I expect that that's going to be a project of some kind somewhere, or are you just going to go straight to a publisher with it?
I hope to get a publisher for that one. I feel like that one deserves to be a thing that can be in a comic store on a shelf that someone stumbles into and picks it up and goes, oh my God, I know nothing about this, but this art is beautiful. Because that's how I like to shop. I like to go in a comic shop where I don't know the books, and then I find something that's like, if it's the Marvel stuff and whatever, I know it's coming out. I like to go, and that's what was so great about Local Heroes, is just all this stuff. So I think Strange Death of Alex Raymond deserves to be on a shelf. So we need to find a publisher who's willing to touch it. I know with Dave, a lot of people are just like, we're not dealing with Did we freeze here?
No, I'm fine. I can hear you.
Okay, the video feed just froze.
Okay. It didn't hear.
So yeah, I've had some publishers already tell me, like it's Dave Sim, we don't want to touch it. But I really want to get a publisher who can put it in bookstores for that one. If that fails, then we'll go the Kickstarter route. And if we get a publisher, then I'll finish the book. Like I have 20 more pages from Dave that I haven't drawn yet that were supposed to be the beginning of volume 3. And then, I mean, he had like 4 or 5 volumes planned, but I can make a readable ending to the book in about 20 more pages. That like kind of admits like this is where Dave got too wrapped up in the weeds to continue, and he's given me permission to write my own ending. So I think that book deserves to come out, as it will be about a 300-page, hopefully hardcover, printed up to this quality that I'm talking about that Sean can get. And hopefully a publisher can do that, because it's really something people need to be able to stumble onto. If we do it on Kickstarter, it's, the 200-300 people that are already interested in the book, and that would be a shame.
Right. Now, is this literally about the death of Alex Raymond, or about the death of his art style?
That's actually a good way. I hadn't thought about that, but I'm sure it's a metaphor for both. Yeah, but it's about his death. He died in a car crash on September 9th, 1956, and he was driving. I don't know how much you know about it, but he was driving the car of Stan Drake, who was his main competitor at the time. He had gone to visit Stan Drake, and they were probably friendly as well. They both lived in Connecticut and must have known. There was a whole bunch of them up there. So he went to visit, and Drake had got a new car, and he was letting Alex Raymond drive it, and Raymond crashed the car into a tree and killed himself, and Drake was lucky. He got out of it all right. So Dave started researching, like, why in the world, were these 2 guys in this car and crashed, and it just spins out of there. So it is about that, but there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of, like, it involves the writer of the comic strip, Rip Kirby. Dave's found a lot of evidence that he was probably blackmailing Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind, trying to get a Gone with the Wind comic strip. So, and then Dave has like spiritual beliefs where he in his mind, like, higher level entities get involved, and that's part of the book. From his point of view. From my point of view, I'm a skeptic, so I could see it either way. I could tell the story either way. So I'll finish it with. I have a finish to the book in my involvement. If I accept his premise, I have a really good spooky ending to the book. In my own experience, things I've seen where it's like, oh wow, yeah, they definitely summoned this entity and it went crazy and went killing everybody. Whether I believe that or not, I don't know.
But make sure
it gets weird. Yeah, it makes a good story. That's the important thing.
So you said that this You Don't Know Jack was supposed to be sort of like the promo for The Strange Death of Alex Raymond. What's the connection in the 2 stories? I mean, how do we learn about Alex Raymond in You Don't Know Jack that would make us want to go to the next book?
Well, Jack was the character in Strange Death of Alex Raymond. Dave had started it as a series of like 24-page issues, and it was going to come out 1 issue at a time through IDW. Then, I don't know what happened. His hand gave out, or I don't know, because like issue 5 is way longer. I don't know. At some point, he quit making them as single issues and started thinking about releasing them as graphic novels. And when he did that, it didn't make sense to him for whatever reason to just print volume 1 as if it had been single issues, because it hadn't. So then there's these framing sequences where we have Jack in a comic store finding the books that Dave, it's like she's finding the books that would have been single issues. And so she's like, what, where'd this comic book come from? Oh, it's cool, reads it, and it's like, I'm magically holding issue 2. And so she was she was the model for those framing sequences, and then Dave just kind of fell in love with her as a character. I mean, she is a great model, and then it's just funny because she's like the exact, if you created like the opposite of Dave, we just happened to find this great model who's like willing to play with us, and so it was just, it spilled out of her being in there. And then eventually I get involved in the Strange Death of Alex Raymond. Like, we're all characters in it as well. So yeah, she's just part of the bridging material in between the meat of the story. And then once we had her, it was like, well, this would be a really funny book, so we're gonna go do this. Because the thing was, Dave joked is that, he's always so worried that he's gonna get flack from feminists, and he thinks everyone's a feminist.
Dave Sim is worried about feminists now? When did that happen?
1994.
I didn't think he was worried about them. I knew he was taking flack from them, but I didn't think it bothered him.
Well, yeah, it doesn't bother him. Like, he's pretty happy with it, I think. But he was hoping that we could write Jack and Strange Death of Alex Raymond convincingly enough that they'd go, well, the rest of the book is absolute garbage. But we really like this one strong female character, and we wish that she just had her own book, and screw all this stuff about these old, patriarchal guys in the 1950s, like these admin driving around in their cars and stuff. We want more about this female comic shop manager. So that was kind of the original joke, is, this is like the feminist spinoff from the book. But the book's like, he has this reputation for always being, misogynistic. But the book, as far as I'm concerned, is Strange Death of Alex Raymond is picking at like all of the terrible behaviors of people back then, the womanizing and the fast cars and that whole mentality. It shows that it got them killed. It got one of them killed. So I don't think that the book has any kind of misogynist bent to it. But he's always
no
worried
more than what was already present in the 1950s social structure. So
yeah, I mean, you can like show what it is, but that doesn't mean that the work is that. But some people get confused about these days. I think it's like, well, you showed what happened, and so now you're party to it. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Your father mowed the lawn of a guy who did something for somebody else, and now you have to pay the consequences. Okay.
Or you made a book like, damning, like, and that's a huge part of Strange Death of Alex Raymond too, is Dave thought that the writer that was trying to bribe Margaret Mitchell was like, they're both from Atlanta, and they were both pretty staunch, like Southern, and they were, fairly racist. And so he's condemning that behavior as well. But it's like, sometimes if you talk about that stuff, you're risking saying, well, this is a racist piece of work. It's like, no, it's not. We're talking about people who did have these terrible views. And, to call them out, you got to be able to talk about them a little bit, but
Absolutely.
We're not promoting it at all.
Yeah, you can't call out history if you're not allowed to reference history. So
yeah, and I mean, I get like, okay, well, why are you guys as white guys doing it? Someone else's battle to fight her, but I don't know. I try not to get too wrapped up in that kind of stuff. It's like, it came up. That's not what this book was about, but it came up as he researched it, and it would be worse to brush over it than to just let it ride. So,
all right. So we're talking right now about the Kickstarter, which is You Don't Know Jack, which is about Jack, the two-fisted comic shop owner, and her comical debates with Dave Sim, represented in comic form. We're going to show everybody who's in the chat that overlay once again, just so they can get an idea of what's in here. The link to this is in the description below. Again, I've monkeyed with the text boxes, and I put 2 books on the shelf. So if the art looks odd there, that's on me. That's not on Carson.
But buy those books too.
We would definitely love it. And guess what? There's links to those books in the description as well. So we would be very happy if you did that.
Buy all the books.
And then, after that, after you've picked up You Don't Know Jack, you'll be primed to be on the lookout for The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, which is one that I'm definitely excited about seeing. Not that I'm not excited about seeing You Don't Know Jack. I'm very enchanted by the artwork on that one, and I've loved the jokes that were, or the interplay rather, that was shown in the Kickstarter. So I'm going to be looking at that. And I definitely want to talk with you more about The Strange Death of Alex Raymond. I don't know that I have any more questions right now, but I'm sure there's stuff I should have asked that I didn't. So if there's something that you're needing to get out that you're saying, come on, RJ, when are you going to do this? I need to tell you this. Now's the time for the open forum.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the other thing that I would throw out there, when people look at the Kickstarter, some other cool things that we've got in the tiers is people can get a sketch by me. So what we're doing there is kind of funny, where people can get, they give me a phrase, and then I'll search that phrase on Google Images, and the first photographic image that comes up, I'll do it straight to ink, no pencil drawing or anything. I just pick up my brush and I go. And I videotape them, so you can look at the updates on the Kickstarter, and you can see the ones I've done already. I've been doing them throughout the campaign. As soon as we got funded, I started doing them. So people can get those. There's the original art. There's a lot of different stuff on the tiers.
That sounds like a very fun and very dangerous Google game.
Yeah, I haven't got anything terrible yet. I mean, I guess someone could choose something, but whatever, I'll draw them. So even after the campaign ends, if people get one of those, I'll do a sped up video of that you'll be able to see on my Instagram, and then on my YouTube I put the real time video. They take about a half hour usually, and you'll get a personal thing. So that's a cool tier. That's a cool extra thing that would be worth mentioning to look for when you're on the campaign. You said there's people in a chat. Did they have any questions?
The chat, we have people here. I think we got about 10 people, and nobody's been typing. They've all been listening. They've all been very good, just sitting attentively and listening to you go on about this book.
We just want them
all waiting for Jack to come in.
Yeah, probably. She's way more interesting than me, which is why we made a book about her. But she's also busy, so it's hard to pin her down.
Well, she runs a comic store, and if she did show up, I would be beholden to tell her that every 2 weeks we have a show called the LCS Guys, and we have no female comic shop managers in that group, but we have Yule Carter from Berkeley, California, Dave Dyer from Belleville, Illinois, my LCS guy, Michael Tierney from Little Rock, Arkansas. We have Larry Doherty from New England, and we have Comic Perch, who is from the internet right now. He's just a Pooh Bear face. But all 5 of them get together and talk about issues in the industry from a retailer perspective, as far as diamond shipments, comic shortages, competition, what's selling, what they got stuck with, and what they think they're going to order and what they don't think they're going to order. So it's kind of a fun show, but we don't have any women in the group. But we do have a question now, because Steve Peters is
Steve Peters. Hey, Steve. How did you find out that Dave had abandoned The Strange Death? No, he did not tell me directly. Hi, by the way, Steve. We used to do a little thing like this together, a little chat thing a while back with some other people, Brian. Yeah, I found out I forget what happened. Someone sent me, Benjamin Hobbs, who works with Dave on the Cerebus in Hell with the question mark books, sent me and Sean a heads up that there was a book, and it's on Kickstarter too, which is kind of funny, but there's a book called You Don't Know Jack, the story of Jake Hager, a professional wrestler. And he said, just letting you guys know, like, you might run into trouble with the name now. And I was like, it's totally different. I'm not worried about it. And in that email, I said, I don't think these products are ever going to come out anyways. Like, in my interactions with Dave in the last 2 years, my sense is that he's done and he's just avoiding putting them out. And everyone was like, no, like, he's just doing thing. But Eddie Kana, will be Dave's successor for owning Art Park Vanaheim, wrote me an email that night or the next day and said, "Hey, you're not wrong. Like tomorrow, Dave is going to be announcing, or in 2 days, Dave will be announcing that he's quitting The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, and he won't be fulfilling the fundraiser edition versions that he raised money for and all this stuff." And so I was like, yeah, I kind of saw this coming. So no, I didn't like. I don't actually think I've talked to Dave in, I don't know, it's been a long time, but no, I didn't. I only found out before everyone else because I had just been saying something about an email. Otherwise, I would have found out when he announced it.
Well, I'm glad that you managed to save it, because it sounds like an absolutely fascinating story. And again, I want to be very closely watching that one, and we'll talk about that
Great,
in the green
thanks.
room
Yeah,
when we're done.
and I should say also, like, big thanks to Dave for sticking to his guns about creator rights, because Strange Death of Alex Raymond is Dave Sims' book, and most of it is drawn by him. It's his project. So for him to like graciously just say, "You can print everything I've done and write your own ending to it," I don't want to like throw him under the bus saying, "Oh, what a dick, he didn't like tell me about this." Like, he has been very gracious in giving me the rights to go forward with it. So just make sure that's out there.
And I'm sure it's not like you would write the last 4 to 8 pages or 20 pages and he wouldn't see it until after it was published. You're probably going to let him see the stuff first so he can say, "Yeah, that's good," or "Wait, you did what?"
No, I probably wouldn't send it to him. Like, I don't know. We just don't have that kind of, I don't know. He wouldn't be interested in seeing it. He would only be interested in seeing it after the fact, I think. He wouldn't have any input on it. So he's given me just blank check to go do my own thing. And that's what I would plan on doing it. And when it's done, I'll send it to him.
Troy Reiser in the chat mentioning that titles are not copyrighted, so you can have as many books out there called "You Don't Know Jack" as you want, which I believe is absolutely correct. I've certainly seen song titles do that, and I've seen multiple books have the same title. I know this because when I search for "The Devil You Know" on Amazon, it ain't the first one that pops up. So,
well, and especially if it's a common colloquialism, right? Like, that, it's not like we're calling it Spider-Man. It's a phrase that people use, so you can't copy. Like, same with "The Devil You Know," that's a colloquialism. You can't copyright that. It's crazy.
Exactly. And plus, there's the difference between copywriting, which you can't do on titles, and trademarks, which you can do on logos for products. So there might be the trademark for the "You Don't Know Jack" game, but also that mark is specifically for a game, and there's not going to be any confusion in the marketplace that there's a comic book out that with a character named Jack.
I'm not worried about it. I saw Brian and Steve had asked something as well.
Steve's I clicked on by accident. It was the same one that was up there before. Brian had talked about the photorealism and said Busiek and Stuart Eminem, Superman's secret identities comes closest in his mind to photorealism. Yeah, that was a really good one too. I think American Alien was also a good photorealism Superman book. Who I think does good photorealism is Gene Ha. Whenever he does a comic book, he's got a very photorealistic style. I haven't seen his stuff though since Kingdom Come.
Yeah, he disappeared.
Not Kingdom Come itself, but the Kingdom that came after.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I really liked him when he was on Top 10. After that, it got a little stiff or something. I don't know. For a long time, I liked Lee Bermejo. Bermejo. His stuff was real good, but again, you run a real risk with the photorealist stuff of it not moving. It feels really stiff. Yes, and I think a lot of those guys have that. I was just talking to Gary Spencer Millage. He had seen the product, and he used to do the book Strange Haven, which had really inspired me as a kid. He was someone that does the photorealist stuff. I think J.H. Williams III on Promethea and Batwoman, and I think he's probably the best at currently, that looks pretty referenced, but it still moves a lot. It's not stiff. Because I don't even think he uses photo references. I think that guy's just a freak. I think he's freaky good.
He is good. I love his art.
So he's someone that comes to mind. Brian Hitch he's in that, it's stylized, but he's in the Neil Adams lineage. I'm trying to think of who. Valiant had some guys for a while. Louis LaRosa, was that his name?
I'm not familiar with most of the Valiant titles lately.
They had
The
some
last
good
10 years lately.
some Travis Charest looking type of realist stuff. Oh, you got all that.
I'm looking behind me like I'm going to see a graphic novel jump out at me. They're like, yeah, that guy. But I've got all like the Green Lantern, a lot of the Van Sciver Green Lantern stuff. I think he's got a fairly, Tales of the Dark Knight was him. He's got a fairly realistic style when he does some characters. I think the Hal Jordan stuff he did was pretty good.
Yeah.
Still super heroic proportions though, so it's not quite the same.
Well, it's just hard to do like the type of realism that I'm doing, because unless you're a freak like J.H. Williams III, and I asked him once when I was very young, I said, do you use photos? And he said, no, he has a photographic memory. And once he sees something, he can draw that. So that's I remember asking that on the Wildstorm message board back in like 2000. If that's true or not, I don't know, but I have that memory. But normally you got to go photograph everything. And it's like so labor intensive. And then to do a superhero book in that style, like getting to the camera angle, like Alex Malev is another guy I look at, and Michael Gatos that works with Brian Bendis. Those two guys are pretty photorealistic. And I wonder sometimes, like, are they making it up? Like Gatos especially looks like he's just running Photoshop filters. Well, I guess Malev too. So it's like, that's just a lot of work photographing all that stuff and then getting those poses and those angles. So it's just really, that's why you don't see it. Like you really got to be such a visionary that you can do it without photographing, but make it look like a photograph. I can't do that.
But like you said, you lose the, you run the risk of losing the dynamic animation feel to it because it looks all stiff and mannequins. And the one that jumps out to my mind, excellent draftsmanship, but absolutely loses it as a comic artist, is Clay Mann when he did Heroes in Crisis for Tom King. You would see these poses and it'd be like, especially the Batgirl and Harley Quinn poses, and they're just kind of standing there. I'm like, they had dead doll eyes and no fluid movement to them at all, but they looked gorgeous. They just didn't look like they were in a comic book story. They looked like they were posed.
Yeah, and I don't get the sense he uses photographs either. His stuff's like, it looks too much like Jim Lee. It's too stretched out. Like they're all 9 heads tall, and I don't get the sense that, which is impressive again, that I mean, he actually looks like a guy that I used to be friends with on the internet, Travel Foreman. He's adapted his style now a little bit, but he used to draw a lot. Like his stuff way back in the day used to look a lot. Like when I saw Clay Mann, I was like, man, Travel started drawing like he used to. But he looks like someone who makes it up. He's another one of those freaks, but it is a little stiff. Yeah. It's tough like that, especially with photorealism. That's one of the reasons I quit comics pursuing it as a career, is because I knew only superhero stuff sells, but I never liked doing that stuff when I got older because I was never good at that, like in your face. It's just too much of a pain in the ass to use my process that I like the results from.
Sure. Yeah, and it's funny, everyone says that there aren't enough genres out there in the comic industry, and yet superheroes are still the only thing that sells. So of course, that's what everybody's going to draw. I for one, I bemoan the loss of all my favorite DC titles from the 70s, which were, Tales of the Unexpected and Ghosts and House of Secrets, G.I. Robot, Jonah Hex, all these that were not superhero titles that I was just reading the hell out of when I was, 13, 14 years old. And then when they do try to do it, it just doesn't seem to quite capture the magic anymore, because now anything that's not superhero and it's going to go into genre, especially a DC, it has to have a Vertigo kind of feel to it. So, it's Jonah Hex, but it's like real dirty and gritty Jonah Hex, and there's going to be a voodoo guy involved somehow because hell is going to take over the world.
Yeah, I mean, Image has a lot of good like genre stuff, I think. That veers off in a lot of different directions, but there does seem to still be this split between like Image, DC, Valiant kind of stuff, and then like the serious like Fantagraphics, and there's some people down the middle like Boom and Magnetic, and they're trying to do, but like Boom, everything's like super cartoony. There's like a very particular style they have. Magnetic has a lot of good stuff. Yeah, there's like, that's one of the things that Dave did so well in Cerebus, is he did a serious piece of art with comics, but it felt like you were pretty much reading an action adventure book. He like found the mid ground between a Fantagraphics novel type of comic and the superhero world. And there's just not much. It's really hard to do that.
Yeah, and what Dave did that impressed me was that he went those hundreds of issues telling one story, and people hung on for it every issue, every month, or
yeah. And at the end,
between.
And at the end, it was basically just printing books. There was hardly any art in there.
Yeah, that's true. Just like, here's Cerebus on the cover. Now here's a wall of text on every page.
Yeah, biblical exegesis on I used to think that stuff was fascinating. Now it's kind of boring to me, but
yeah, I need a little bit more artwork in my comic books now. All right, so Carson, I appreciate you being on the show here. Remind everybody in the chat that You Don't Know Jack is linked in the description below. You should definitely check that out. Pick up one of those tiers. This is a really good art book. And for the $15 that it is, including the shipping in the U.S., for a Dave Sim written story with this high level caliber of artwork to it, you don't want to miss out on this one. So I encourage everyone to hit that one up. And Carson, when you do go forward with the Strange Death of Alex Raymond, we want to have you back to go into that in depth on that one, if that's okay with you.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I'd really appreciate it.
All right.
I'll definitely reach out.
We'll definitely make that happen then. Everybody in the chat, appreciate you coming by here. Hope to see you again next time.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.